Hey everyone, it's Susan Pierce Thompson and welcome to the weekly vlog. This week, Peg, who does transcript editing for the Food Revolution Summit, which is coming up in April. I'm super excited about that. And I'm going to be speaking on it. That's exciting. She has written in with a question. She says, the whole food plant-based community includes a lot of people, cooks, recipes with coconut sugar, palm sugar, agave, xylitol, etc., 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 none of which I think I trust. And there's this other book that makes distinctions among the OSes, glucose, sucrose, etc., which, frankly, for non-scientists can be overwhelming. Would you give us the straight scoop science on it at all, please? You, I do trust. Peg. Great question, Peg. Here's the deal. Sugar, in all of its various manifestations, affects us in two primary ways. One is through messing with our glucose and insulin regulation system. Like sugar, for example, hits the body and there's a rise in blood sugar and a corresponding rise in insulin and that whole system. And, over time, if insulin levels get raised too frequently and too much, we get resistant to our own insulin, and this causes metabolic syndrome and eventually diabetes, etc. So there's that whole system. But there's another system, which is the taste buds going to the brain that both trigger an addictive response in the nucleus accumbens and trigger a preemptive insulin raising response. So the sweet taste buds on the tongue, like the body has evolved to go, oh, the sweet, that means that a bolus of sugar is coming. We better get the insulin there in advance to be ready to meet it. So it's like a preemptive insulin response. And then also the flood in the nucleus accumbens that leads to an addictive craving response. So unfortunately, the straight scoop is anything added to our food to make it sweet is going to, for some people, folks like me who are higher on the susceptibility scale, in the mid-range or higher, anything that is added to food to make it sweet is going to start to kick off either one or the other of those cascades of responses. So I just don't like to split hairs over, stevia, truvia, xylitol, agave, whatever. If you're adding something to your food to make it sweet, it's not going to work. Just the taste hitting the tongue is going to raise insulin levels. That sweet taste also is going to flood the brain with dopamine. So you just don't want to do it. So Peg has a second question. Oh, just to go back a second. Dates, raisins. I think that, I often hear people talk about there's a lot of fat vegans. And I think it's because of dates and oat flour. Like, I just feel like there's these combinations of dates and like other type, like the sort of fake baking, like the oat bars and the whatever. Yeah, I mean, like I could eat 500 date oat bars. Anyway, so she also writes in, and now that I think about it, maybe at some point you can also explain why elimination diets, which then reintroduce certain foods, are simply non-workable for some people. I'm suspecting the addiction word is in play. Happy thin and free New Year to you, Susan. I'm mostly happy, but getting to the free part. Okay, so elimination diets. First of all, I think after you're already doing bright line eating, if you get rid of the sugar and flour, I think elimination diets can be really helpful to figure out whether there's other stuff going on. So for example, you could eliminate soy products if your weight loss is really slow. I have a friend, actually, Chris, who's on my team, Chris Davis, who's our director of program delivery. I don't know if that's her exact title, but anyway, she was my rock star personal assistant for a long time, and now she makes sure that all our programs get delivered smoothly. She does bright line eating. She's been doing it for a long time, and her weight loss has been really slow. And she let go of soy milk and tofu and stuff. She let go of that, and her weight loss every month doubled. And she was like, wow, I just had no idea that my body was sensitive to soy in that way. Now that's sort of an allergic response. That's a sensitivity. I don't know if allergic response is the right term. I'm not a medical doctor. But anyway, I I think elimination diets can be helpful to discover something like that. Like, are you sensitive to gluten? Are you sensitive to soy? Are you sensitive to corn? Are you sensitive to eggs? These are dairy. These are potential allergens that some people are especially sensitive to. So eliminating a food for a while, seeing that it doesn't have any effect, and then reintroducing it can be fine. And I think in bright line eating, people who are lower on the susceptibility scale can do some form of reintroducing. So for example, if you do bright line eating really cleanly, let's say you're a 5 on the susceptibility scale, you do bright line eating really cleanly, and then after a while you're like, you know what, I think I want to try some Ezekiel tortillas at lunch. I'm at goal weight, I get to add grain to lunch, let me see if an Ezekiel, which Ezekiel products are grain products that they're like bread and muffins and, you know, like English muffins and tortillas, but they're not made with flour. They're made with more intact grains than flour. It's pretty much like bread, pretty much like tortillas, and very triggering for a lot of people. I don't do well with them. But if you're a 5 on the susceptibility scale, you could reintroduce that and then see if it works. And I think for a lot of people, that works really well, getting your system really clean, and then you can tell using a process that I call the 4 questions, which is like, you know, do I have peace around it? Is it messing with my weight? Is it healthy? Is it escalating? You can start to ask those types of questions to see if reintroducing that food actually works for you. So I'm actually not opposed to elimination diets that then reintroduce things as a sort of a concept. I'm a scientist, and that's actually a really helpful thing to do, to reintroduce things one at a time and see the impact on your body. What I don't tend to see be too effective is people going back to sugar and flour, because basically, if you do what you always did, you're going to get what you always got. Like, you know, eating sugar and flour and trying to stay thin doesn't work for a lot of people. So that's what I see tend to not work. Anyway, those are my thoughts, Peg. I hope that was helpful. And if you have a question you would like me to address on the weekly vlog, go ahead and send it in. I'm at Susan@brightlineeating.com. I will see you next week.